Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Comix Rant. My name is Arvin Bautista, and today I'm going to talk about Mr. Mammoth by Matt Kindt and Jean-Denis Pendanx. I'm butchering names, but that's okay, because nobody cares about my channel. I always go to the library. I borrow a bunch of books for my kids, and definitely for myself. And they have an amazing collection of graphic novels. I love comics, and I'm always in there. I'm old. I'm trying to keep up, but I can't. But I'm always looking at websites for new comic books, and sometimes the stuff in the library that I'll find are things I've never heard of. And that is part of the fun. And I know this is Matt Kindt, so the guy, everybody knows this guy. I don't, because I'm old and I am not keeping up to a lot of this stuff. But I didn't even know that he was starting his own imprint at Dark Horse. So that's what this is, and it's called Flux House. And I only started getting into Matt Kindt's stuff recently. It was like this 8 stories, Giant Man. I can't remember the title. I'm terrible with names, but it was a great story. And that's when I started getting into it. He's known for like mind management and all that kind of stuff, but I could never really get into it. But that was the first story that I got into his work. And once I flipped through mind management, I was like, oh, this book is great. Anyway, so I picked this up. I didn't know who was writing. I just look at things. I look at covers and go, hey, that seems interesting. What's that about? And then I start flipping through books. So I'm hoping. So this channel is about that, like how I will find books and I want to share it with you. I want to share books with everybody out there. And sometimes even like just flipping through, I'm like, ooh, orange. It's like, ooh, yeah, let's keep looking. Flip through pages. Mr. Mammoth, right? And I just want to share it because comics is such a visual medium. I could, write about it and publish blogs about it. But it's not the same, I feel, unless I'm flipping through it for you. So maybe it gets you all excited about this medium that I love so much. Jean-Denis Pendanx is the artist, and European style. I think he's very, very good. So he's probably done a bunch of books that I've never seen before. I don't read a lot of bande dessinée. I don't have much access to it. But I always like looking at it for sure. And it's set in Montmartre, which I only know because I watch Amelie. So yeah, I'm sad. But it's got that nice, it's like watercolory look. It's a European style storytelling. I don't know how better to describe that. It's really great. My first read through, I was scratching my head, and I think that's like Matt Kindt style stories. But once it's a great story because it leaves you at the end with like, well, what just happened? Because there's twists that come fast by the end, but it all actually makes sense. So the second time I flipped through it, I was like, wow, this book is genius. It's really good. It's told in different chunks. It's not, it is linear. It's just, there's this TV program. It's like a detective kind of story, by the way. I just kind of jumped the gun here. Detective noir story kind of thing. But the guy who's the detective loves to watch this TV show. And we actually have a few panels of this TV show going on with someone writing a letter to this person. Right? And, it's not a spoiler, but it's the detective because he loves the show. Anyway, I want to say that, sometimes when I see faces like this, it kind of reminds me, it's this European style that I see, but it's also this touch, right? It's like a lighter touch in colors. But it reminded me of a Monera kind of face, like from that school of thought. It is not Monera, but it's got that look. Some really nice dark colors. I think it did reproduce pretty well on the page. Sometimes, digital colors are hard to catch on printed format, but it looks nice, right? Like this nice dark and moody color palette, but it's pretty rich. Like these I don't know, these threw me off because they're so gestural. Weep, beep, beep, weep, but they do add a certain feel to the book, and this is cool. Changing color palette, changing scenes. I always love that kind of stuff in comics. And yes, he's a detective. He looks like this guy. Looks like he is Mr. Mammoth. So he's pretty messed up looking. The hook is he's a private detective who looks like a beast, really beat up and banged up, but he's a pacifist. So it's like this contradiction in his physical presence and what he actually thinks inside. And that's why he's beat up like this. You would think because he does get into scraps and he will like defend himself, but he's not going to go and be the one to throw a lot of punches at all. So he gets banged up a lot in this book, in the course of this book too. The setup is great. Client comes in and then tells his whole story, and Mr. Mammoth is like the best detective in the whole wide world, apparently. And as the story goes, you get to meet like the people that he works with, which is cool, like old school detective shows where he gets his research. They still use film here. I don't think it actually sets the year on when this happens, but there's certain things that the fashion of the book, and it's just kind of like in this general time period. It doesn't really tell you. There's newsstands. What? Right? Newsstands. He actually has to get film printed, and this is the lady that prints it for him around the block, which is cool. But it sets it in that way without having to tell you, obviously, like the guy's haircut and all that kind of. So it's not quite back in the what are noir films set in 50s, 20s. I don't know. I'm just throwing out centuries. I'm just throwing out decades. But it's got like then it's like kind of like this pseudo New York place, right? Because he also has this car that he hops into, and he goes off, and he's like, and he hit the jungle. I'm like, where the heck is that? Is that in Central Park? But it's like this. It's its own world. Because again, I think he does mention it, but this is like a chunk of the story that again, Matt Kindt uses to flip to a different time, different place. And it's confusing at first, but it makes a lot of sense. And I like it because it's not spelled out by the end. Look, what's exactly going. I mean, it's a detective story. He figures out what's going on. He catches the bad guy. All that, right? That does its trick. But there's a lot of layers in it, a lot of twists, and then also like a deeper message, a deeper meaning, even like a deeper resolution that also gives you insight to Mr. Mammoth himself. And I love that. It was pretty cool. Color palette's great, like red and green, orange and blue. Like it's all in there. Very distinct characters. Lovely art. So here, this is like the TV show. There's a whole sequence of this TV show. It looks great. She lands in Hong Kong, or cyberpunk Hong Kong. Not even cyberpunk. That is what Hong Kong looks like. There's like a tuk-tuk, which is not Hong Kong, by the way. So it's got this own world going on to it. Really great stuff. I'm zooming into these things because I love sci-fi, so it's got kind of like that vibe to it to me. But he, the artist is so good, Jean-Denis. that, you know, he'll do this painting, close-up of a painting of cats. It's like, oh, it looks good. And it's not, you know, done in the way that the book looks, which is this watercolory look. Storytelling is great. You can see as I'm flipping through, you know, there's a lot of cuts going on with like certain things and certain scenes within the context of the story that might not seem to make any sense in the beginning. And then there's also a mix of genres. There is a whole lot more sci-fi going on. I mean, you saw it, but that was a TV show previously. So that's, but you kind of see it here and you're like, oh, okay, something's going on. There's a mix of things going on. Some cool layout. That's not traditionally, I don't know, European in the bande dessinée style. So it's cool. Picked this out, just flipping through it. The art looked great. And it was Matt Kindt, so I gave it a shot. And yeah, definitely a good, I borrow stuff from the library. You probably noticed that, but oh yeah, I mentioned that in the beginning. I borrow stuff from the library a lot. And this is kind of how I see things, find things. And then sometimes when it's something I really like, I buy it. Oh, I went to the end. But don't worry, that did not spoil anything because it is a crazy story and you really need to read it a couple times to connect the dots. In the back, there's like a bunch of sketches. I guess Matt Kindt himself wanted to draw it and he has his own style. But then I think he met Jean-Denis and that's what he says. He was like, all right, then he can let it go. He was really looking forward to drawing this story, which is interesting because he just, it's kind of, I don't know how to think like that because I draw my own stories all the time. And I think Matt Kindt does too. But this one, he was like, okay, I'm okay to let this go, which is something to say about Jean-Denis' art, right? Like Matt Kindt really liked it. So there's character sketch. These are Matt Kindt stuff. And then I believe this is Jean-Denis' stuff over here. I could be wrong. But Jean-Denis does have shots like this in the book. And then this is Jean-Denis' stuff. This is going through these characters. He's like a total gorilla man, giant man. Oh, I should say mammoth, but mammoths don't look like that. Nice studies here. It's interesting in this batch of library books that I borrowed. That's cool. There's the panel layout. I wonder if that's some kind of architectural thing. It's pretty neat. I mean, like architectural thing, like it exists somewhere real in a building. Because he sets this one. This was, I do like these sketch things at the end of these books, but you know, the opening page was in this cafe bar, and I guess he based it off a real one that's close to him. It's a neat thing. It's like right next to this bridge. So it was kind of cool to see. But also seemed so specific that I was thinking like maybe that is a real place the first time I saw it. There's some pinup work. I'm not sure if this was ever serialized, but that's the end of that. Really good stuff. Very good story. You could say one and done. It's self-contained. But Matt Kindt can definitely write more Mr. Mammoth books. So maybe that's the whole plan, right? But what a bang. Like what a good way to start his series and the Mr. Mammoth series. So if it comes up with more, I'll definitely be reading. I hope you enjoyed my flip through on this episode. I hope it makes you want to go look for this book or any kind of book at your library or your comic book store. There's a lot of great books out there. I'm finding, and it's giving me energy to work on my own stuff. So go search out some books. They are comic books. They are so great. And that'll be it for this episode of Comix Rant. See you guys next time.